If you were me and people close to you, such as your mom, would doubt and demotivate you, how would you handle or deal with it? I can handle negativity, but when it's my own mom, I don't know how to handle it. Tough question, tough, deep issue. Yo, what is up, everybody? This is the End-to-End Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Yunwin. And as you know, my friends call me Ninja. You can call me Ninja too. This is the End-to-End Podcast, the alpha to the omega, the beginning to the end, talking about life, motivation, inspiration, drive, entrepreneurship, success, and offering you morsels in this all-you-can-eat buffet called life. We are back in the studio, and as always, start my podcast with gratitude. So I am thankful for you being here today listening, but also for all you supporters out there who are liking, commenting, sharing this show, the reels, all my socials. Thank you so much. Our audience continues to grow. And as you all know, or if you're new to the show, I do this podcast strictly on my own dime, my own time. So the only way we grow the show is if you all share the show. And I don't expect you to share the show for free. I only want you to share the show if you learned something, if you felt good about it, this podcast or any of the other episodes have helped your life. Please do share the show. I like to say, if your knowledge swole, share the show. That's how we grow. And of course, if you're new to the show, our mission here, our mission statement is to positively inspire billions of lives across the planet. And the only way the message gets out is if you share the show. So thank you for all the support so far. Our audiences continue to grow. And, it takes time. These things are organic and, just so appreciative. But back in the studio on a cool spring day in the middle of March, right before St. Patty's Day. Truth be told, I'm kind of wanting to be here, but also not wanting to be here. The reason is my allergies are kicking in real bad. I'm wearing the sunglasses because my eyes are puffy, and I'm caught between a rock and a hard place because where I live, the oak trees are just throwing off pollen like you can't believe. I have 3 black vehicles amongst my, quote, personal fleet, and get them washed. An hour later, literally they're crusted over with pollen all over again, looking yellow. Even my white vehicles are covered in yellow, so it is bad. But if I take anti-allergy medication, a lot of it dries me out, it desiccates me out, clamps down my blood vessels. So I'm damned either way. So I either suffer with allergies or get dehydrated and just dried out with meds. So I'm choosing the route of hopefully natural remedy, meaning I'm just going to deal with it. But my eyes are puffy, got the nasal drip, not feeling great. In the alternative, though, this is the day preceding the last day 74 of this cycle, 75 hard. So I'm going to do an episode on that third time around, but this time I did it proactively with a group of people that, some have done it before, some are doing it for the first time. And so I'm going to do an episode on that once we wrap up tomorrow. So happy to be here about that. But, with the allergies, I truly, truth be told, didn't feel like coming in. But you all know, if you've listened and if you're new to the show, my theme this year is consistency is key in 2023. So even though I didn't feel like doing this today, guess what? I'm here doing this today. So excited to be here. We have different types of show. This show today is going to be a prolific Q&A show. So we have a prolific Q&A show where people send in questions either online, Instagram, DM, email, and I answer those questions on the show. Other shows I interview people or talk with people, and then the other type of show is where I just do a monologue on a concept about business, life, or philosophy or things like that. But today's episode is prolific Q&A, and if you ever have any questions that you want me to address on the show, email it at ask@the2npodcast.com, or just DM me straight through Instagram, or leave comments in Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, of course. So this one comes from a young entrepreneur who I actually know, but he DM'd me directly. And this guy's in college and is taking a non-traditional route of being an entrepreneur rather than focus on a dedicated dedicated career course, which is a very important question, which happens quite often, to be frank with you. You'll see why I want to read the question. So the question is, and this is typically I do 2 questions on Prolific Q&A, and the follow-up question will actually be the second question, but they're both related to the same issue. So here we go. If you were me and people close to you, such as your mom, would doubt and demotivate you, how would you handle or deal with it? I can handle negativity, but when it's my own mom, I don't know how to handle it. Tough question, tough, deep issue. The reason it's so tough is because there's 2 things you cannot change in your life. Absolute cannot change. 1, who your parents are. 2, where you're born in circumstance. So that's why this one is so tough and so tight, especially amongst immigrant families. But even in any case, it's a tough one when your parents are not supportive of what you want to do. And I can see both sides of this. My parents, right? Thankfully, they were so focused on surviving and thriving and building their own business. They really didn't guide, or I don't want to say didn't care, but they never told me, Yon, you got to be a doctor. Yon, you got to be a lawyer. Yon, you got to be a business guy. They never said anything. So in a way, it helped me out because I had to find my own path. I was free to choose my own path. And I'll get to that in a second. But relative to this question, it all goes back to value alignment, right? It's immutable. You can't change the fact that that's your mom. But even your parents or siblings or people close to you do not share the same values as you. In this particular case, this young man values being an entrepreneur, values the prospect of being wildly successful on his own without taking a traditional route. It seems, and I don't know the exact issue, but his mother is discouraging of that. And of course, that can be deflating because that's his mom. Everybody craves the love and approval of their parents. Most everybody, I should say. Some people really don't care. But in this instance, I know this young man, he really craves that adoration and respect and love from his parental figures. So it's tough when those values don't match. And it's especially tough when it's around choice of career or choice of life path. Okay? It's very important, like any relationship. The relationships only thrive when values overlap or are the same, because everybody then is rowing that boat in the same direction. Listen to my last podcast episode about rowing in the same boat. So in this instance, mom is not rowing the same way as the young man. Young man wants to be an entrepreneur. Mom sees him struggling a little bit, says you shouldn't be doing that. What has to happen is that a real sit-down conversation with mom needs to happen. It needs to be put out on the table. Listen, mom, I love you. I respect you. I hear what you're saying. Thanks for the advice. But ultimately, this is my life. My life. And what I told this young man is that respect and obedience are not one and the same. As a child, you don't have to be obedient to demonstrate respect. You can always be respectful and behave that way. You don't always have to be obedient, even when it's your parents, especially when it involves your life. Because ultimately, if you are not true to yourself, it's your conscience that you're talking to before you go to bed. It's your conscience that you got to wake up to when you get up in the morning. It's your conscience that you have to look at in the mirror when you're brushing your teeth and talking to yourself and having that dialogue. So in the end, it is your life. So as I stated before, values don't match, even if it's amongst family members. You still have to carve your own path true to yourself. And it's not one of those where you just cut off the relationship. Mom, you have no idea. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to do my own thing. No, it has to take a real sit-down conversation and say, Mom, this is what I want to do. I'm going to do it anyways, regardless of how you feel. I respect your opinion. I expect your perspective. I respect where you're coming from. But in this case, we just don't see eye to eye. I'm going to go try to do my own thing. Now, a lot of people will avoid that scenario because why? Because of the fear that once they break off and do their own thing, and if they don't succeed, what's mom going to say? I told you so. You should have listened to me. And nobody ever wants to hear that, right? Nobody ever wants to hear that. So rather than confront that issue head on, most people will just lock it down and go do their thing so they don't have to hear the I told you so. But don't let fear prevent that from happening. Fear, like I said, is a natural emotion, so don't run away from it. But you got to use it to be successful. On the flip side is that you want to have that conversation because why? Certain people like me, if somebody doubts you, that actually, for me, if somebody doubts me, that actually motivates me to get the job done. Like, believe me, don't ever doubt me, because I'm going to come hell or high water. I'm going to show you I can do it, right? I'm going to show you with the big ass chip on my shoulder that I'm going to get it done. So you can use that as motivation. Hey, mom doesn't believe in me. I'm going to show her. And in fact, by showing her, you might make her prouder of you in the long run once you succeed. Say, Mom, I heard you. I did my own thing, and look what I've accomplished. And then she might even say, hey, you're right, and I'm very proud of you for taking that stand. You'd be surprised, very surprised, how that scenario actually plays out for people that I know who are successful and carve their own way without their parents' approval, right? We're not seeking approval here. We're seeking success and fulfillment. The only approval that matters is your own. I'm going to repeat that. The only approval that matters is your own. Okay? So in this particular instance, mama disagrees. She's discontent. She's discouraging. You just got to say, hey, look, I hear you, Mom. I don't want that negativity around me. If you can't be encouraging, just don't say anything. I'm going to do what I'm going to do anyways. I respect you. You're my mom. I understand. But this is the situation. And that, I think, will set the foundation for this young man to push off and go do his thing. And so it's tough. It's sometimes heart-wrenching, but success in business doesn't care about your feelings. I'll repeat that one. Success in business does not care about your feelings. So you got to do what you got to do. Be true to yourself. And again, the only approval that matters in the long run is your own. Okay? So the second question in this prolific Q&A, or the follow-up question, is what should you do as a parent guiding a young entrepreneur? Most parents, and this applies to immigrant families especially, because I come from one, I have that perspective. It didn't happen in my family, but in my friends that are immigrants. The parents want them to be what? A doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, a dentist, a pharmacist, something licensed professional, right? They push them that way. You got to do it. And why do these parents do this? Okay, let's go back more fundamentally. Why do these parents push this? Well, every parent, of course, wants, I shouldn't say every, but speaking generally, most parents want their kids to have a better life than they did. Okay, that's why we're here, the land of opportunity, America. They want their kids to have a better life than they did. So, of course, rather than a blue-collar job or a 9-to-5 or whatever, they want their kids to thrive in an educational system that, for the most part, is free up until college and so forth. They want them to thrive in a licensed profession where they don't have to get their hands dirty. They can wear a suit and tie or a shirt or a blouse, business dress all the time, look the part. They want, quote unquote, the job security, which is really not secure. Let me tell you the truth. And then also, and this belies or underlies a lot, which is they want the bragging rights when they go meet with other families. Oh, what does your son do? Well, he's an engineer. Well, what does your son? Well, he's a doctor from Harvard. They want the bragging rights. So all of this projection is being put on these kids, these young adults, right? It's all what they want for their kids. And that's the wrong approach. That's the entire wrong approach. Let me ask you parents out there who are kind of in this mode, you got to be a doctor, you got to be a lawyer, you got to be this, you got to be. Have you ever considered the downside or the negative side of that chosen or that enforced profession? Let me tell you. Well, for the audience that doesn't know my background, graduated second in my high school class, went to Baylor undergrad. I forget which cum laude, but some kind of high cum laude. I think it was summa cum laude. I can't remember. It's been so long. Went to medical school, graduated there. So I'm a doctor. Went to law school and thereafter. So I'm also a lawyer. Graduated somewhere high in the class over there and also got my master's in finance. So if there's anybody that can speak about these professions or experience, that would be me. But to the point, though, is parents, have you ever considered the negative side of the profession you're trying to enforce upon your child? It's not a coincidence that physicians, lawyers, other chosen licensed professions have a high degree of depression, suicide, and substance abuse, right? That's because of the requirements of the job. If you're a corporate lawyer in a big time law firm, you have to. This is behind the scenes. You have to bill. Your requirements are to bill 2,400 hours of time to qualify for your bonus. Now that's billable hours. That's not other hours where you're learning, meeting, talking, whatever. This is billable hours to clients. 24 to 2,500 hours a year. That's a lot of time in the office. I know young lawyers who, that's all they do is sleep in the office, basically, almost literally. What about physicians, ER, taking call, staying in the hospital for 42, 48, 72 hours straight, time away from your family, time away from your wife, time away from hobbies and other things that would otherwise fulfill you, right? Yeah, the money's there. The money can be good. The money, is stable, somewhat. But is the fulfillment there? And more importantly, is that actually the life that your child wants to live for him or herself? Odds are it's not. It's forced upon them. I know several people. I'm only a doctor because my parents wanted me to become one. It's very rare where it was, I'm a doctor because I wanted to be a doctor. I chose to be a doctor on my own. Most of the time, it's my parent, my dad, my mom was a doctor, so that was kind of what's expected. My older brother became a doctor, so, I had to become one, lawyer, engineer, whatever. But is that what they really, really want? Some would say it is, because at some point you get too far where you're unwilling or unable to turn back. So they take on the life of that chosen profession only because they're too far to do what they really want to do. But then they're still lying to themselves in the long run. Okay? So this ties into the whole forcing your kids to go to college and all that. Is college the right thing? I would say no. Unless your child truly wants to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, whatever, pharmacist, and truly understands the upside and, more importantly, the downside. Right? Like if you become a doctor, you will not start your life until you're in your early, mid-late 30s, where you start your career. So you're already at 10 to 15 years behind your colleagues in terms of advancing your career, right? There's a huge amount of delayed gratification in becoming a doctor, and somewhat for a lawyer too, but not as much. So is college really the right thing? Arguably, I say no. And you're probably thinking, man, you're the one of anybody that should be an advocate for college is you because you have all these advanced degrees. True, but I'm also a realist. And I understand what it takes, the downsides, but more importantly, what's best for any particular individual. And I say no, unless they truly want to become one of these licensed professions that requires a college degree, then college is not an absolute requirement for success. It is not an absolute requirement for fulfillment. It is not an absolute requirement to make a ton of money. I know guys that are high school dropouts that are wildly successful. And why is that? And this is the key to the point. Parents, rather than force your child into a profession, you should find ways to teach them the values required for long-term life success. Let me repeat that. Rather than force your child into a profession, a hole in the wall, a category, teach them the values required for long-term life success. And what do I mean by that? Grit, determination, consistency, persistence, steadfastness, stoicism, because you got to take emotions out. All these adjectives and characteristics and traits of people that have made it, or that are on the way to making it, or that have had some kind of success, those lessons are way more important than any diploma on the wall. Those lessons are way more important than any diploma on the wall. Trust me, you come to my office, and you all are welcome to come to my office anytime. I've got like 6 diplomas on the wall. And I will tell you that the values for success, learning those values, way more important. Because once you have those values learned and instilled, you can do whatever the hell you want and still be successful. And that's the freaking truth. Now, you look at my parents. My parents have no college degree. They came to America after the Vietnam War with literally zero money. Shirts on their backs, don't even speak the language. But what did they have? Knew how to sweat, hard work, determination, consistency, persistence, working through highs and lows, really bad lows. And what did they do? Start their own business, use those values, and became wildly successful millionaires. Did they have a doctorate? Did they have a PhD? No, not at all. Not at all. And it's through that example that I've learned a lot of the values it requires to be successful. Right? The ability to do hard things when you don't want to do them. Gosh, that would be defined sometimes as grit. If you can do these things, you could be whatever you want. Whatever you want. Plumber, author, artist, whatever your passion, your heart's desire is. But you can't be successful even if you became a doctor and you don't have these qualities. It's very tough to be successful. Even if you became a lawyer and don't have these qualities, very tough to be successful. So, parents out there, do me a favor. Consider not pigeonholing your child into a specific profession. And I'll say one more thing that I didn't say before, is that as related to both questions, people can only advise or opine from their relative frame of perspective. So if your mom or dad is not a doctor or never gone through the path of becoming a doctor, what good is their advice telling you need to become a doctor? They don't really know what it's like. It's the same thing, like if I want to become a billionaire, why would I take advice from, no offense, somebody making $40,000 a year? That's going to tell me how to become a billionaire. That doesn't make sense, right? So parents, if you haven't walked the walk, don't influence your child in the fashion of pigeonholing them into a specific career path. Let them find the way. But it is your obligation, I would say, to teach them the values of what it takes to be successful. And if you don't know what they are, have them find a mentor that does know what they are, and have them have their mentorship teach them those values. Because again, if you have those values, you can be successful anywhere, anytime, doing whatever you want. You'll find a way. You'll find a way. Trust me on that. But if you don't, then yeah, you might be doomed for failure. So again, this is a very kind of deep, prolific Q&A, but I think very important, especially coming from a young entrepreneur. I wanted to get this out there. It was it's a question that I think is very common out there these days. Now that people are questioning the education system and wanting to do this entrepreneur thing. But keep in mind, the percentages are very, very, very low to be wildly successful as an entrepreneur. Something like 4%. Okay. So it's not cut for everyone. Why? Because not everyone has the values that I talked about. They might say they do, but do they demonstrate and illustrate and actually apply the values to be successful in order to be successful as an entrepreneur? Okay. But as always, if you found value in this episode, prolific Q&A, please do like, share, and comment, especially share. Go to Spotify or iTunes and hit the subscribe button. Also on YouTube, that also helps our rankings. And again, we just want to spread this message all around the world, this episode and all the other ones in the past and all the ones upcoming. So if you liked it, please do share the show. If your knowledge swole, share the show. That's how we grow. This is the Prolific Ninja on the End-to-End Podcast. I look forward to bringing you another episode next week, because consistency is key in 2023.